Okay, so this video will go over some balance concerns I have with Operative, and before I get the comments about it, I want to read off a paragraph from page 1 of the PDF. And this is from the middle of the paragraph. The Starfinder team's goal here is complete compatibility between systems. This means that we expect to see parties of adventures where classic fighters and wizards play along soldiers and witch warpers. So, with that in mind, me comparing it to Pathfinder 2e classes and calling it overtuned is actually a valid criticism. Okay? Power level is not the only thing you should criticize during a playtest. You should also go over how abilities feel to use, how generally impactful you feel with the class, how it makes other people feel to play with you, etc., etc. But I have enough complaints about Operative as it stands right now, and I see it as a lot of potential, and I want to like the class very strongly. It is directly up my alley, as it is basically a plus accuracy martial that has a bunch of feats that do cool stuff when you attack, and that's a fun design space. But it just has a few things that I can't get behind it due to those few things. So let's go ahead and start with one of the most obvious things about it. It gets to have fighter accuracy with guns. Now, fighter accuracy with guns is not a unique thing. It is done by the fighter. It's called fighter accuracy for a reason, and the gunslinger, which has gun in the name. So, both those make sense. Operative is now the third class to start with expert in any form of strike. So, them doing that is significant. Something that the fighter and gunslinger have to counteract that natural gift of accuracy is they don't have any good damage bumps. So with that, I want to go into the Operative's next level 1 class feature, which is called Aim, which is a damage bump. So they're going to be hitting more often, critting more often, and all those hits and crits do extra damage. That's strong already. And, Fighter doesn't have subclasses, but that doesn't mean this one shouldn't. And the subclasses maybe aren't the most impactful. The one that I think will change the playstyle the most is the one that, of course, lets you have strength as a key ability score and changes out your expert in the martial guns for agile weaponry and unarmed striking. So, yeah, they're a wrestler as well. So, you'd think I'd be pretty good with this by now, and this is just mildly overtuned. People will say that aim requires you to use an action every round, and that makes it fair, but I kind of disagree with that because it's a common meme of all those fighter players don't know what to do with their third action. Well, now they have the best third action in the game. They make it so that all their strikes that turn do more damage. It doesn't get much simpler than that, and I don't think there's a normal third action in the game that competes with that in terms of efficiency at all. So I think that it answers a big question for the class, and thus you won't get as much build diversity because there's no difference between a charisma or an intelligence-oriented one. They're all just going to use aim instead of recall knowledge, demoralize, create a diversion, because aim will just kind of outclass all those. And that's a shame, really. So, I don't like aim from that perspective. But this is not where my issues with the class end, because it also then gets increased mobility. Sure, fine, whatever. And then it gets the ability to, whenever it reloads, it gets to take a free stride. And that's passive. Now, there's a reason I'm pointing out this being a passive. I am aware running reload exists. That's why I'm complaining. Because, you see, the trigger of that passive ability is whenever you reload. But running reload has you reload. So now you reloading has you stride twice. It is more action efficient for this character to reload their weapon if they want to move somewhere quickly. That is absurd. So I would really appreciate if this class feature was changed to just be running reload. In the same way, it gets an activated ability that lets it stride half its speed. And this is to avoid tax opportunity. And has the flourish trait for some reason. I don't get that, but it has the flourish trait for some reason. And I'd much rather this just be the mobility feat from Rogue. And because that's already a feature that's been proven to work fine as passive, we're trading one passive out for another, so the amount of passive versus active in the class chassis would stay the same. And I just think that'll make it cleaner. And before people say, it is entirely unprecedented for a class feature to be a feat for somebody else, I'm going to put up a feat on screen. And that feat is called Reactive Strike. Now, Reactive Strike is a feat available to many, many classes, but it's also a feature available to one class, the Fighter. So, class features being feats isn't new, and it isn't exactly new to go the other direction either. So, I don't necessarily think that it's weird to give feats as features. That's kind of a thing that was done several times throughout the remastering process, especially when it comes to the Barbarian's class chassis. Because you look at the discussion around what changed in the Barbarian, you'll see a lot of pre-remaster feats mentioned that are now just part of base Barbarian. So, therefore, we can just ask for that edit to happen. But this is not where the crazy stuff with this class ends, because they just get to have Ranger multi-attack penalty, starting at level 17. Because. So they have Fighter Accuracy and Ranger multi-attack penalty. Did I mention that they have a subclass that lets them use agile weapons at Fighter Accuracy? Because this is where that becomes very, very relevant. Because now, they're going to be going, okay, I am going to strike, use my Rest archetype to combat grab, and then I'm going to still do my whatever hold I have on you. And by the way, because they're agile, I'm only have -4 multi-attack penalty at the end of this, and I still have Fighter Accuracy and you're off guard. So really, I'm at normal accuracy on my third strike. That's kind of what this class is going to do to people late game. And that entire thing, that combo of press maneuvers, plus Fighter Accuracy, plus Ranger, multi-attack penalty, is a strong enough combination of abilities for it to have a special callout in the dual class variant rule, as something that is overtuned and you should probably think twice about including in your game. This is textbook overpowered, as in it is literally part of the text of the book that it is overpowered. So, but, you know, power level issues aside, I don't like it when a class chassis enforces a certain playstyle as heavily as the aim action does, because I think it would make a lot of characters feel samey-ish, and this is a launch class for Starfinder 2, so I think I'd appreciate them being pushed into a niche that is a bit more exploratory with the actions available to Starfinder characters, but I understand Rogue already exists for that purpose, so I'm not going to push on that too hard. I am going to mention, though, I do think this class is very, very powerful. I think that it should have some amount of stuff to differentiate from Gunslinger, from Fighter, etc. I just don't like the way they do that give it a damage steroid, because that is going to make it probably the best martial class in the game at damage for every range. Because it also has one that lets you use its ranged actions in melee without provoking reactive strikes. And if this feat gets printed, which I highly doubt it's going to get printed as written, the level 2 feat that basically gives it reactive strike throughout its entire first range increment. That is going to be an overtuned ability. Just generally. So I want them to move away from that kind of thing. And maybe that ability gives them the ranged reactive strike, because that is still really cool. Maybe just move that to like a level 8 or 10 feet, and it'd probably be fine. Like, truly. It's a little much for level 2. Like, let other characters get reactive strike, play with reactive strike for a couple levels, and then the ranged character can completely dominate the game with a reaction. That's fine. If they want it to be a super powerful feat, I think it would be a super powerful feat at level 14. It's just so strong and it's level 2, I don't get it. But such things happen in the playtest. I am commenting on the overall design philosophy being giving this class just about everything. It has move speed, it has things to make it more mobile, has a bunch of ways to get around reactive strikes, has fighter accuracy, has a damage bump. I think that's too many things. It should get its hand out of a few of those cookie jars. Maybe some of those cookie jars get locked behind subclasses. Like maybe one subclass has a buffed up version of aim that is super strong. Another version has the fighter accuracy locked off. Another version has maybe a different set of interesting class features locked off. And so every subclass of Operative feels very distinctly different. Because if a class has subclasses, I believe they should all be very different in the type of gameplay they enforce. Or maybe they should just pick stuff based on the feats and have those be their cool actives. Because right now I think aim is going to eat into their action economy a lot because it's so good and optimal to use. And I'm kind of worried that'll enforce a lot of their builds feeling samey. But playtest is young. I could be completely wrong about that constraint, and I do think the power level issues will be solved over time. I just want to throw my hat into the ring with some basic analysis of, I think this is probably overpowered in its current state, and I hope that it gets a few swings in the nerf bat before it makes it into the final book. I will, however, say it is still really cool that they're experimenting with different ways to build class chassis, because this does have a unique set of saving throws at level 1. It has expert in reflex trained in the other 2 saves. Not only does this make it the first martial without 2 expert saving throws, it is the first class period to have expert reflex and trained in the other 2. So that is unique, but that's not enough to keep it from being overbearing in every other regard. So I hope Paizo takes another look at this and makes some kind of edit to make it more fair for the game overall. But hey, that's my 2 cents. People are free to disagree with me down in the comments down below, and I'm not going to promise I'll change my mind, but I will at least consider other arguments, and you should form your own opinions, playtest the game, and tell Paizo what you think. I just have a YouTube channel, so I get to also tell more people what I think. So, there we go. Have a good one.